My wife had an affair with her co-worker. I'm in desperate need of help and advice. I 28M found out that my wife 28F had an affair with her former supervisor 35M at work who's married himself with kids. We've been married for 5 years, and we're high school sweethearts. We were each other's first relationship and first everything. When we were little kids, we were even neighbors. She has always been there. We both came from broken homes, but we always hit each other, and we created something different than what we grew up seeing. Or at least that's what I thought. Maybe I was just one big idiot the entire time. I still work remote while my wife has since gone back to being in person. There's not many women in her field, and she used to vent to me a lot that her job was more in line with a boys' club. Her AP, who was still her supervisor at the time, was one of the good ones supposedly and looked out for my wife at work. Recently, my wife received a promotion and I was so happy for her. She was now a supervisor herself. This came some new responsibilities such as having to take a few business trips during the year. Her first trip happened last week, Wednesday through Friday. Before she left, I told her that I'd be rooting for her from home, and she told me that she'd be leaving her heart with me and to take care of it. That's something she always says to me whenever we have to be apart. On Monday, she came home from work early. I could immediately tell that something was wrong. She looked overwhelmed, and there was a red mark on her right cheek. My wife is pale and tends to bruise easily. I asked her what happened, but she only asked me to hug her, said she just wanted to feel my embrace. I hugged her and after a few moments, she proceeded to say there was an incident at work. She sat me down on the couch and made the confession that has destroyed me and completely uprooted my life. She had time with her former supervisor on the team lead trip. I couldn't even process at first. It was like I was watching it happen to someone else or like she was going to reveal it was a cruel joke. I think I would have accepted the cruel joke over reality. I was quiet during her whole confession, not saying one word. I was just in shock. Cheating is a sensitive topic for me as it is for a lot of people. My own family was wrecked by an affair my dad had. I'm the one who caught him cheating and told my mom. My dad and I's relationship is not good at all because he blames me for ruining the family and he has never forgiven me. My wife saw what cheating did to my family, and knew how much it tore me apart. Heck, she's seen me cry over this back when we were teens and she comforted me. And then she turns around and does this to me? To us? Apparently, the man's own wife found out, and confronted her husband and my wife at work. It was a big scene with employees and customers all present. The woman had called my wife white trash and slapped her. After the slap, other employees started interfering and the woman was escorted out of the building. My wife then called her older sister 30F. In her words, she said her sister scolded her and told her that she needed to tell me about the affair and that I needed to hear it from her. I still never said a word, and she asked me to please say something. The only thing I could muster up to say in the moment was I needed her to tell me what happened on the trip. She said on the second day of the trip, she went out for drinks with the other team leads and that the group stayed out late and she felt like she needed to participate for a team bonding experience. Throughout the night, each team lead wandered off until it was only her and her former supervisor left and they went back to his room to listen to music. He kept complimenting her and telling her how timey she was, and that if he were me, he wouldn't be able to keep his hands off her. He eventually kissed her. My wife told me she doesn't know what came over her, and that she wasn't thinking clearly, but she let him keep kissing her which then turned to him groping her. They progressed to having time. I didn't want any more details because I couldn't take it and I got up off the couch, telling her to stop. She reached out to take my hand, but I moved away and told her not to touch me. She broke down crying, and started profusely apologizing and begging for forgiveness, saying how it was the biggest mistake of her life, that she hates herself, and she wishes she could take it back. She kept repeating how much she loves me and only me. That the alcohol clouded her judgment. I told her she needed to leave. She needed to call her sister to pick her up. She got up from the couch, crying even more, and tried to hug me, but I moved away again. She begged me not to do this, saying all kinds of stuff like she will quit her job. Give me full access to her phone. Saying we'll do counseling. I couldn't keep it together. I told her if she wasn't going to leave the house then I would. I didn't even stop to pack a bag or anything, but just went for the door. She grabbed my arm, I guess, to try to stop me from leaving, and kept pleading for me not to do this, and saying after everything we've been through that this can't be the end of us. Despite everything, seeing her in that state and leaving her behind while she was crying still tore me apart because I love her. I love her more than I ever thought was possible to love someone else. But she broke me. She tossed our entire life and future away. I ended up going to my mom's house, and that's currently where I'm staying. I don't know how I kept my senses during the drive, but when I arrived, I just cried. I don't even think my mom has even seen me cry as a teen or an adult. The only person who's ever seen me cry is my wife. I did tell my mom what happened because I honestly didn't know how to keep it from her with me showing up at her place in that way. She was brokenhearted over it. She and my wife always got along. My mom treated her like a daughter, that was their relationship. She didn't pass any judgment, but said I could stay as long as I needed and tried to offer some words of comfort. Ever since I left, my wife has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, but I haven't answered or wrote back. The texts have basically just been begging me to come home and to talk with her, asking where I am, and to please not give up on us. I just feel so broken. I thought I knew what this pain was like, but it's nothing compared to experiencing it yourself. I never thought my wife would do something like this. I always had the belief that there was no coming back from cheating for me, that the relationship would be over, but now I keep thinking if I should give our relationship another chance. Go to counseling together and try to salvage the relationship. I keep thinking back to all the history we have, how much I love her, how we always felt like matching puzzle pieces, and how when I thought I had no one, she was there. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed. I'm at a loss. Redditor's reactions update after. Redditor 1, that was not the first time. The other people didn't just drift away, they waited everybody out. She never would have told you if she hadn't been caught. How would App's wife had known if they had just returned from the trip? She no doubt had information that she collected over time. Think about it. How did his wife find out? She had to have collected more than that isolated event. Redditor follow-up, nobody gets caught the first time that they cheat. WW and her supervisor are quite likely a well-established couple at work functions. Op needs a lawyer, STD tests, and a workable exit strategy. She's just another cheat who got caught. Redditor 2, how did the supervisor's wife figure out that her husband had a one-night stand? This affair wasn't a one-off, it had been happening for a while and his wife figured it out. Write that woman a thank you and serve your wife with divorce papers. You can choose to reconcile or not after she knows you will absolutely divorce her. Redditor 3, this sounds like trickle truth. You are being told the minimum that she thinks she can get away with. And only because the affair has become public and she fears you will be told. Do not believe that this story is true nor complete. Has she quit that job? I will bet not. Although she may be fired soon. Redditor follow up, her affair didn't just start and end with the work trip. There was likely an emotional component long before anything physical happened. And it's likely they were already physically cheating well before the work trip started. Op should speak with the OBS. She obviously knows far more than him and that alone indicates there's more to the story. Update. My wife had an affair with her co-worker. Thanks to everyone for the advice, concern, and resources. With everything going on, I haven't been able to respond to every comment or message, but they've been very much appreciated. This week has been the most excruciating. I feel like a helpless kid again who can only watch as the world around me falls apart. And I'm going through it without my wife, who has been my best friend and support. I was certain I didn't have the whole story. So yesterday I looked into contacting OBS. I knew I needed to hear what she had to say in order for me to get some clarity. She wouldn't have any agenda to lie or withhold whatever information she had from me. I found her FB account, and wrote her on Messenger. She responded no more than 10 minutes later and offered to video call right then. I immediately replied that I was available. One look without a word, and I could tell she was going through a similar hell like me. She said that shortly after being escorted out of the workplace last Monday, she actually tried to get in contact with me, but couldn't find my details. In fact, one of the last things she said to my wife was threatening that she was going to tell me. When she was saying this, all I could think of was how my wife rushed home that day and how her sister told her that I needed to hear about the affair from her. I asked her if she knew more about what occurred during the team lead trip or was this really just an ONS and how did she find out. What she told me confirmed my fears. The affair dates back to before the trip. Documented proof from texts that were of an intense emotional affair. All of this, OBS shared with me with screen share, and I could barely keep it together. She told me that back in January, she noticed that her husband was withdrawn and disinterested towards her. There were times she saw him texting my wife, but he would brush it off as work-related convos. The day before the trip, she went to the job to drop something off her so had forgotten, and she found in his office with my wife, standing close together, joking and smiling. She said the whole atmosphere between them felt flirty. When they noticed her, they parted, and my wife's face looked panicked while her husband went over it all together. She said it was then that she felt certain there was something going on between her husband and my wife, but she didn't address it because she wanted undeniable proof her husband couldn't escape from. After the trip, her so was more distant and dismissive. That night, she waited until he fell asleep and then checked his phone. She went to his text thread with my wife where everything was there to see. Intimate texts back and forth before the trip. It started as an emotional cheating. Others were of AP saying that it was impossible for him to focus at work whenever my wife was around. In these texts, it was clear that AP was the pursuer-aggressor toward my wife, but that doesn't really make a difference because she never shut down his advances. Some of the pre-trip texts were AP bashing his wife and going off about repeated miscarriages. It was just plain disgusting with how he talked about her to my wife. He kept mentioning how maybe he needed a woman like my wife. There were texts from last Thursday night with AP inviting my wife to join the team for drinks, and texts AP sent to my wife the following morning which clearly revealed that they had time. At this point, there were no more replies from my wife after Thursday night. I didn't think it was possible for me to hurt any worse, but here I am. OSB said it took her everything to remain calm as she didn't want to alert her twin sleeping in the other room, but she didn't wake her husband up nor confront him immediately. She said that in her heart she was done with him, and that for her, he had crossed a line he couldn't come back from. She said she was more angry than she'd ever been during their marriage, and that through her anger, she was set on humiliating him like he had humiliated her. So she faked her smiles and acted like everything was fine and waited until Monday, where she was going to out him at work in front of his peers, underlings, and costumers. She said this confrontation had been brewing for a while now. Apparently, it was only a coincidence that my wife was at work that day as well. When OSB saw my wife with AP and another employee, she decided to target my wife, too. When she went on to calling out my wife tried unsuccessfully to get her to quiet down. OBS then started saying her husband had no signs of remorse in the slightest, but only anger at her public outburst. I learned from her that AP was fired the following day after the confrontation. She also kicked him out of the house, and said one of the hardest things in her life was having to explain this all to her twins. I had an idea of what she meant because I saw my own mom have to do the same thing after my dad. She said that this whole ordeal showed her who her husband really was, and while her husband pursued my wife, nonetheless my wife still had a part in the affair, and that as a woman, she had no sympathy or respect for my wife whatsoever. I told her I in no way fault her for that, and that she has every right. She actually apologized to me for her husband's role in the affair. I literally was at a loss for words for a moment, and then I apologized for the part my wife played, and she said that her and I are now a part of a club we never wanted to be in, a club that our SOs forced us in. She asked me about my wife and I told her that I honestly didn't know what I was going to do, but that I wasn't currently staying with my wife. She wished me all the best, and I did the same to her, and before ending the call, we exchanged numbers, so if we ever wanted to talk again. Every raw emotion was only heightened. I confided in my mom about what I learned and she still didn't voice any judgment, but I could tell that she's upset with my wife. A part of me feels great happiness that AP is losing everything, his job and his family, and that maybe he's out there suffering as well. But I'm not proud of that feeling. At the same time I feel immense guilt over that because a wife is losing her husband, and children are losing their family as they know it. Those kids are in for a whole world of pain. I feel anger also towards my wife for doing this to us, for breaking our vows, and for putting my health in jeopardy. We did have time after she returned from the trip, and the post-trip texts hint that protection wasn't used. I do know I should resume contact with my wife regarding the information OBS has provided me with, and demand a timeline. But at the same time I feel even more lost than I was when I made the original post. I feel like I'm just drowning here. Redditor's reactions update after. Redditor 1. So your wife lied to you again, even after DD1. Because it wasn't a ONS on a business trip. It was months. Yikes. Sorry man. That's brutal, and I'm glad you're with family and getting support. Redditor 2, your wife has been lying to you for months. She isn't sorry, she is only sorry she got caught. If the other wife didn't find out, you would have never known. They would still be having the affair today, don't forget that. File for divorce and end this marriage as soon as you can. Redditor follow up, this. Dunno what kind of mental gymnastics you have to go through to justify this behavior and the obvious lies. She deliberately weighed her options, made a confident gamble that he'd never find out, and went for it. She 86'd their marriage the moment she ducked that dude. Then it blew up in her face, she lied some more about it, and he's all surprised Pikachu face that she lied more. Not trying to be rude, I know what it's like, you'll be happier with time and her out of your life. Op. Redditor 3, sorry, brother. You know the details. Talk to a lawyer about options now. Just be careful if you choose reconciliation. Protect yourself. Your wife may not have returned text after Thursday, but she was clearly fraternizing with him again. It was going to continue. Sorry man. Update, I broke no contact with my wife who had an affair with her co-worker. I want to start this off by thanking everyone for the advice, kind words, support. Everything is appreciated. Admittedly, there's been some comments, messages hard to see, but they're nevertheless needed, and I feel like they're coming from a good place. 1 week since D-Day. After talking with OBS, I've been trying to process everything. I haven't been sleeping well. To know that my wife, who I've known since we were 5 years old and started dating at 13, who had been my best friend confidant, had an affair. I feel like an empty shell. When I step outside, I feel like people know and they're secretly laughing at me. Has anyone else felt that way? I decided to break NC to request a timeline. The plan was to go Sunday without warning, and if I'm being honest, I wanted to give her another chance to be truthful, and to see how she'd been living. Some mentioned AP could be at our home. It was painful to consider that she could be defiling the home we shared together for most of our adult lives, but after everything, it wasn't far-fetched. I texted OBS for a description of AP's car, and why I needed it. She sent the info. I made the drive back, and looked out for AP's car, but it wasn't around. I went into the house to find my WW by herself on the couch. She was stunned to see me, her eyes were red and a little puffy, like she'd been crying. I hated seeing her this way, and I had this urge to comfort her. But then I recalled how we got here in the first place. It was confusing almost, not acting to help her. My WW called my name with a sense of relief and moved toward me, but I asked her to stop. She did, then said that she'd been worried about me and thanked me for coming back home. I asked if AP had been in the house, she said no. But I searched the house, and she followed after while promising that he was never here. I didn't find anything that suggested AP was. I asked if she had any contact with him. She admitted he left a voicemail, but she didn't call back and blocked his number. She showed proof of this. We sat at the dining room table to talk. At this point, I tried not getting lost in emotion. I told her I would like for her to answer my questions. She agreed to do so, and that she's just glad I'm here and that we're talking again. I asked her if she had quit, and she said she hadn't yet, but on the same day AP was fired. She was suspended for a week pending an investigation. Tomorrow she'll learn the outcome. She said AP's firing was the sole reason she hadn't quit like she offered. I asked her to tell me about the affair. She said she already did, but I told her that we both know there's more to the story, and now I'm giving her another chance to be honest with me, and if I were to discover any lies, then there would be no going back. She was quiet for a few moments and then she nodded. She revealed the extent of the affair, and it matched with what OBS showed me. The affair started emotionally, and that there had been some flirting at work, but she insisted they only had time the one time. She didn't go into every single detail that OBS showed, but she revealed the EA. She didn't say anything I didn't already know, but it was like a fresh wound opened up after hearing her confirm it. I was left in silence again, like how I was on D-Day. She asked me to please tell her what I was thinking. I asked her why would she do this? She saw my family's history firsthand, but still did this. Was she unhappy in any way? At this, she broke down crying, and said she has never been unhappy with me or our marriage, that she loves me and our relationship is the most important thing to her. I said her actions speak louder. She said she doesn't know why she got involved in the affair, but she never wanted to hurt me, and it kills her, that by the time that they had time, She made so many mistakes and realized she was in too deep, and didn't know how to pull herself out, especially when AP had championed for her at work. She told me that the affair was no failure on my part, and that it's all on her. I asked if she felt efforted by AP, to which she said that everyone loved him and that as I know there was a boys' club mentality. She said that she froze up during S time. She just kept saying sorry, and if she could take it all back she would. My emotions were slipping, so I tried to speed it along, and asked why would she have S time with me, which she initiated. She only said that she felt so disgusting and guilty that she wanted to wash it away by being with me again. I told her she didn't wash anything away, all she did was endanger me to ease her conscience. She didn't have a response, she only kept crying. I then asked her if she ever planned to tell me. She said she wanted to confess, was afraid because she knew how cheating was a deal breaker for me. She thought she could fix it by stopping the affair, and not communicating with AP outside of work. She said she stopped texting him after they had S time. I asked her if AP wore a condom, and she revealed S time wasn't planned and that because she froze up, she didn't mention it to AP. She said that she'll never forgive herself, and that I have every right to hate her, and that seeing the pain she caused me, and being without me with NC has extremely scared her. She pleaded with me to give our marriage another chance, but I compared her to my dad, and that remark stung deep. She said she was nothing like him, but I asked where's the difference? She tried to take my hand, but I moved my hands out of the way. She said that we're not my parents, and it's different for us, and to please tell her that we can make it over this, after everything we've been through. I couldn't say that. I then made my timeline request. It seemed to terrify her, but I insisted, and she agreed. I told her that we needed to get tested. She agreed without an issue. I was barely keeping my emotions in order, so I went to go pack a bag and some essentials. She begged me to stay, saying that she'll stay on the couch, but she just wanted me to be home. I said that I couldn't stay here with her. When I was leaving, she said she loves me so much and that she's sorry for everything. I didn't say anything in return, I couldn't. She then asked where I was staying, and I admitted that I was with my mom. She asked if I could tell my mom something, but said I can't be her go-between. I know she's also worried about her relationship with my mom. As I said before, she treated her like a daughter. WW never really had her mom in her life, there was neglect. She asked if she could hug me, but I said no and left. Now, I'm just looking at my options. She told more of the truth this time, but reality is still reality. I don't know what to make of her statement that she froze up. I also don't know if I'm ready to tell other people about the affair because I feel so embarrassed. Anyway, right now I'm trying to take it day by day, and would greatly appreciate any advice on how to proceed from here. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, she is still telling you so many half-truths, I can't stop shaking my head. The two things that stand out the most in what she told you was, that she said that she made a series of mistakes and something she hasn't said. When she told you that she made a series of mistakes, she showed you clearly that she is still not owning up to what she did. She made repeated decisions and not mistakes, but she still wants to downplay what happened before their trip to not make it seem so bad. As long as she isn't owning up to what they did, which was willingly, happily and consciously betraying you repeatedly, your marriage is done and over. I mean, it is most likely already done and over, but the way she acts cements that further. And then comes the second part, the one that is much worse, which is the part she hasn't told you about. She was in an affair with her lover and knew that her lover would go along on that trip. She told you that S time wasn't planned? Well, what had she thought would happen after she already started an affair with her lover, went on a trip with him where you and his wife would not be, when she stayed with him while colleague after colleague left and then went with him to his room? Does she really want to make you believe that she never planned to have S time with him and because of that she hasn't brought condoms along? How old is she? 12? Another statement of her that made me wonder was when she insisted that they only had S time once. That leaves a lot of room for interpretation. What about kisses, S time, making out and that all? And what also would be interesting to know is, if she ever stayed longer at work than she needed to just to have some alone time with her lover. She knew as soon as she knew about the trip, that they would have S time. She wanted this to happen when he asked her to come with him to his room and she happily went there. She just didn't care if they use a condom or not, she didn't care if she gave you a STD or not. I mean, I don't really hold the way she is acting against her, it is very typical cheater behavior. Only confessing to what she has to confess to and downplaying her affair and what they did are like the first 2 steps of the busted cheater hang guide. What you need to be aware of is that you don't believe her whatever she tells you because you want to believe her and you don't want it to be as bad as it actually was. Your wife has a lot of work to do before she and you can even entertain the idea to reconcile, if that should still be a thought on your mind. So what has she done in that week to work on herself? Has she looked for counselors to get into individual counseling? Has she ordered books to work on helping you heal? Or was she too occupied with feeling sorry for herself? Just out of curiosity, have you heard the message her lover left her? Redditor 2, like I said before brother, it's gonna stay with you forever no matter the amount of therapy. It's best to move on and find someone worth your time. Redditor 3, embarrassed. Yes, one feels that. You are not good enough. You will need support. The blow up at her workplace took care of that for you. When you go to the store, there will be co-workers there of her that will whisper in their husband or wife ears, they're the guy who wife cheated on him with so and his wife blew up the workplace. In time, and you can ask your mom, you learn, and people in relationships know that cheating is about the cheater. We all have our bad moments, but nothing justifies this. So get out in front of it. Insist that she tells the family the whole story, including she slept with a wacko that bashed his wife for miscarriage. Buddy cheaters and WW tell of the fog and the funk and being caught up in it. You never lose your faculty to reason. I have received attention, as is everyone here. We chose to do the right thing. She chose to cheat. It's a choice that played out 6 months. She did not freeze up during S time. She would have carried on this way had her AP wife not blown up her life. She is sure to get fired. If they fired him, they will have to fire her, otherwise they have double standard. Even after the big blowout. Her first choice was to deceive you with half-truths rather than all the facts. She will tell you it was to protect you. Ask her then why she was protecting you. She will answer from further pain. Then ask her who caused the pain. She caused this. The earth-shattering pain is her fault. How do you wash away your guilt? By having S time with your partner while your AP leftovers is still swimming in her. No bro, luckily you have been through this. Your question of how she is any different from your dad is telling. She is not. She chose the shine and the rush over the hard work. Not in one instance did she choose you. She chose to carry on a 6-month affair that she sealed with S time on her work trip. She knew he was interested but used the AP for promotion and gave him his just reward. Cheap S time in a hotel room. After this, guilt set in. Did she chose you? No, she chose to make herself feel better by exposing you to possible disease. She said they kissed and she went to his hotel room. She knew S time was on the table. We are adults. We know how the bases work. She did not freeze up during S time. She planned that entire course for 6 months. Get her timeline. But she knows you know. I want to commend you. You are playing your cards close to your chest. You control emotions and feelings. Your question about your dad to her is about you trying to tell her to stop deceiving herself. But she's still trying to control the narrative. The question about your mom is telling. It shows she constantly thinking and managing the narrative. You see, your past and your mom's influence is going to have a big say in your decision to stay or go. She keeping track of those possible influences. She calculated and well thought through, and that indicates to me she not the type to freeze up. When AP wife confronted them, she tried to calm her down. Again, no freezing up. Cool, calculated, well thought out evaluation and management. She did not freeze up after but controlled the situation by calling her sister. Setting up a story and then flawlessly carrying it over. While talking to you, seeing you breaking, emotionally destroying you. There was zero freezing up. She has to background of freezing up? She went through a tough life. How she do that? By controlling the narrative. Not by freezing up. She had S time with you because she took a new route in life by sleeping with her AP. The fact she did not contact him back after the S time tells me she was evaluating. Again, no freezing up. When she walked into the room on the Monday before dropping this bomb of cheating. This must have been mind-numbingly terrifying. Did she freeze up? No, she coolly asked for a hug and then destroyed you. Sorry bro, I have seen nothing but cool, calculated decision making and thought from your WW. 2 things tripped her up. The fact that she underestimated and still thinks she can control you. We are not your mom and dad, really? The second thing is you are not just broken. You have the inner strength to come to this sub. You went to your mom. Where did she think you were? Your spouse is in a world of pain. But you sit on a couch with puffy eyes. You do not phone around trying to track him down and make sure he's safe. You calmly wait for your work departmental hearing. Again, no freezing up. No bro, you are married to a run-of-the-mill cheater. She uses the cheater handbook just like your dad did and still does. You got this. If you want to stay, make sure you get a contract with infidelity clause set up. But I fear the dynamic is over. She used to be your pillar of strength. You now know she human. But you also know she does not share your values. She used her AP for promotion. Gave him his reward. But then everything came apart and you would never have known. You are indebted to the other betrayed spouse. She went through the pain of miscarriage and finding out this painful truth. She had a cool head and outed them. That's a woman. Possibly a great future friend with your values proven. Redditor follow up, op, this evaluation right here deserves some thought. Very, very astute observations.